episode of the Checkers and Records podcast. Ladies and gentlemen, I am your host, Carter Leonard, once again, and it will be me for this week on the 29th installment of Season 1 of the show. Ladies and gentlemen, hope you guys are having a very fantastic Thursday afternoon. Although I don't say that very often, I always wish the best for every single viewer out there who watches the show, and I couldn't be more thankful than that. But let's get into the meat and potatoes of this episode, ladies and gentlemen. But before we actually get in, I just want to say real quick that if the mic audio, which is currently me talking right now, sounds a little bit horrid like it did last week, then I certainly apologize for that. But, that's, technical difficulties going on. It doesn't sound too horrible as of right now, as I did multiple tests before the recording of this eventual episode, but it never hurts to test things out, so I did just that. So let's get into the episode, ladies and gentlemen. This past weekend was the first race of the NASCAR Cup Series playoffs, but it wasn't just any ordinary race. It was the Southern 500. Darlington weekend once again for the Xfinity and Cup Series guys. The truck series obviously having an off week, so they were able to, go off and do what they want. But Xfinity and Cup were at business as usual, and it was a pretty wild weekend to say the least. With a pretty meh Xfinity Series race to say the least, but also you had a really interesting Cup race to say the least, mainly with a lot of playoff drivers who we are expecting to be title hopefuls and favorites had trouble the very first race. Now lucky for them, it's only one race in a 10 race stretch of the playoffs, so they have plenty of time to figure all this out before crunch time comes. But you don't want to be eliminated in round one, but we'll get to that in a minute. Let's go ahead and officially start with the actual weekend recap in of itself. The Xfinity Series had their second to final race of their regular season before their playoff start, and it was a pretty odd Xfinity Series race at Darlington. Now, typically Xfinity Series races at Darlington are known for having some really fun and exciting finishes. This one, on the other hand, while it did have an overtime restart, it wasn't the winner that I don't think anybody would have wanted, but we got anyways. Denny Hamlin, in his yearly Xfinity Series start at Darlington, got the win and got it done for Joe Gibbs Racing. But this was not the only highlight of Denny Hamlin's week, or the week after this weekend, the week preceding, I should say. But we'll get to that later on in this episode, as we have a lot to talk about. But congrats to Denny Hamlin for winning the Xfinity Series race. But the real winner was whoever came second. Whoever came second in that race. But congrats to Denny Hamlin. Now we get into the Cup Series race on Sunday, which was the first race of the playoffs, as mentioned previously. It was the typical Southern 500. You had a lot of strategy play out, but you also had some really odd and goofy moments. It seems like every Southern 500 that we have every single year, we just have those out-of-pocket moments. While they're not as insane on the levels as Juan Pablo Montoya hitting the jet dryer in the 2012 Daytona 500 type of insane, but you just have those types of moments that just either leaves you in awe or just leaves you scratching your head. One of those moments left me scratching my head, but I'm going to break down the race after I get to the winner. Kyle Larson. It seems like forever since he last visited Victory Lane, which was all the way, if you want to count points races, the last time that you won a points race was all the way back in April, which was when he won at the Spring Martinsville race. But the last time that he actually visited a Victory Lane was when he won the All-Star race at North Wilkesboro. So Larson has picked up his third win of the year and finally getting the Southern 500. He has been close so many times. The closest he came before this was the 2021 race where he and Denny Hamlin were, battling out the last few laps, but also Larson tried the wall ride his way all around that race, but Denny was able to hold on to win that race in 2021. But Larson this year was victorious, and he has locked himself into the round of 12, becoming the first playoff driver to do so. So for Kyle Larson fans, you can take a sigh of relief, as you will not have to worry about him being eligible for the next round of the playoffs, which honestly, if he didn't win that race, I wouldn't have expected him to be out of the first round, but you get what I'm saying. So Larson, your winner at Darlington and winner of the first race of the round of 16, making him the first driver to enter the round of 12 based off a win. So congratulations to Kyle Larson and the whole number 5 team from Hendrick Motorsports on their win in the Southern 500. Now, while Larson was celebrating the win, we also had some other drivers who are really big contenders in this race, and quite frankly, all had very good shots to win. But first of all, I want to get into some, I was getting to that actually. We're actually going to get into some drivers who really impressed a lot of the fan base or the community during this race. First of all, let's give a shout out to Carson Hocevar real quick. First start with Legacy Motor Club in the 42 car, continuing his part-time cup starts. I believe this is his second part-time start in the Cup Series. His first being with Spire Motorsports in the 7 back at Gateway. But this time it was a much better result as he was able to take the Legacy Motor Club number 42 Chevrolet and take it all the way up as high as the top 15 at one point, although he did finish with a 17th place finish. I don't think we gave Carson Hocevar enough credit for that run, considering that, he's one of the most polarizing young talents in the Cup Series, not in the Cup Series. Well, he'll eventually will be, but who knows what that will be. But Carson Hocevar has been one of the most polarizing young figures in the sport. This year he finally is getting on the right track, getting wins in the Truck Series, being a Truck Series championship contender, being in the playoffs for that series. And, he's making part-time cup starts for Spire, Legacy Motor Club, and he is just showing to us all that this guy is potentially a future star in the sport, and we are just witnessing, the beginning of it. So, that's really, really exciting for Carson Hocevar. So congrats. So nice job for Carson Hocevar. I wanted to give a huge shout out to him. Now we're going to talk about the playoff drivers who basically either were doing well or weren't doing well. So I want to start off with the drivers who didn't do well, because there were some that were, for the most part, not really. It just wasn't their night. So let's start off with the pole sitter of the race, Christopher Bell. He won the pole Saturday and qualified up front. So he got out to a very early lead, was leading laps. And although he fell back to, I believe, a not-so-good pit stop by the 20 crew, considering that he literally swapped pit crews with the 54 team, which is considered to be the fastest pit crew in NASCAR as of right now. But hey, everyone makes mistakes. Bell did not fall back too far, as he was able to get up as high as the top 5. So, at that current point of the race, we didn't really think that this was going to be the last time that we saw Christopher Bell. So we weren't panicking for Christopher Bell, but that was until Turn 2 happened. Now, Turn 2 at Darlington is notorious for being a very narrow corner when it comes to hitting the wall. And with these next-gen cars and how sensitive the toe links are to even slightly tapping the wall, even if it didn't look like a big hit, it could break very, very easily, and it's certainly something that you do not want to be a part of. But Christopher Bell learned the hard way as he was coming off Turn 2. I'm not sure what lap it was exactly, but I would know it was during the part of stage one, because stage one was 115 laps for, both stage one and stage two. So Bell smacked the wall coming off of two really, really hard, and it basically bent the toe. Like, he didn't DNF, he went on to finish the race, but any chance of that car continuing its very consistent race pace that was shown at the beginning of the race, yeah, that was all gone. After that hitting the wall, it was just all gone. No drive off for the 20 team. So that was probably one of the most frustrating things that Christopher Bell or any Christopher Bell fan out there could have experienced. So I would hate to see Bell get bounced out of the round of 16 early. It's only one race, but Bell just had a really tough time at Darlington. It was going good at first, but after that wall hit, it was just downhill from there. Then you get to his teammate, that being Denny Hamlin. Denny Hamlin was, quite frankly, besides Larson leading the good majority of the last part of the race, was arguably the dominant car of the race. I mean, Denny Hamlin has had a knack for winning at Darlington. He is really good at this place. He's had a good history at this racetrack, but that was until the late portions of the race where green flag pit stops were happening, and he was going at it for the lead between his own car, that being the 45 of Tyler Reddick. But during green flag pit stops, the 45 was able to leap ahead of the 11 who was leading, because the 11 team had a very, very bad pit stop, and it was just off from there. I don't know. I think something else happened to the 11 that costed him a shot at winning. But that bad pit stop, especially in crucial moments like that, are really devastating, and quite frankly, are just not acceptable when it comes to playoffs. Especially, and that comes with any round of the playoffs, whether it's round one or round three going into the championship four. You just can't make those mistakes. But yeah, so for Denny Hamlin, it was just downhill from there after that pit stop. I want to say there was something, I'm not exactly sure why it was a slow pit stop, but regardless, it leapfrogged Tyler Reddick ahead of his own boss, and Denny Hamlin was just... it was done from there. I believe he got a penalty, like a pit road penalty as well. I don't think he was speeding, but I think there was... I want to say he got a pit road penalty for something, but, that was just insult to injury at that point. But, yeah, just tough for Denny Hamlin, who I believe, as of right now, Denny Hamlin has been one of the fastest drivers as of late. He's really picked up the speed and pace, and it showed this past weekend at Darlington. But, like I said, it's playoffs. In crucial moments like that, you just can't make any mistakes. And, Denny Hamlin had to learn that the hard way. It's not his fault, but, it's just, you can blame it on the pit crew, you can blame it on the racing gods themselves, but regardless, it screwed Denny Hamlin out of a potential win to lock himself into the round of 12. He could still get it done. We're coming up on some good tracks that are really beneficial to Denny Hamlin. He literally won at Kansas earlier in the spring, even though he's a multi-time winner there at that racetrack. And also, he's won at Bristol before. So, yeah, so if you're a Denny Hamlin fan, I wouldn't worry about, this round, so to speak. But, yeah, but for every Denny Hamlin fan out there, that was just completely devastating. But now we flip from one side, which is the bad side, to the good side, and we have a lot of drivers to talk about. Oh, wait, hold on. I have one more bad driver to talk about, and it was the driver who I picked to win the Southern 500 in last week's episode, that being Martin Truex Jr., and I didn't really catch much of qualifying, if I'm being completely honest. I was out doing my own thing, doing whatever, and Proste was actually watching qualifying. Proste was actually watching qualifying, and then he messaged me saying that Martin Truex Jr. qualified 31st, and I'm just like, what? Really? He qualified 31st? I mean, like, honestly, like, it's not the best starting position that you could ever have in a race. But I thought to myself, okay, well, Truex has, you know, some speed. So I mean, he's been really quick as of late. But I don't really expect him to, you know, I really expect him to like get up to the front and be a contender, be a top five driver. Oh boy, was I ever wrong? It felt like that he was like stuck in the mid 20s all night. Like I have no recollection of ever seeing Truex inside the top 10 besides green flag pit stops. And if he was in the top 10 for a good period of time, it was easily forgettable for me because it felt like that Truex was like stuck in like 20th and 25th. It felt like that he wasn't going anywhere. It felt like that, you know, it felt like that Truex was just stuck back there. That's all I got to say about him. So, yeah, I was quite frankly disappointed in MTJ's performance. Considering that I had him winning the race. Prostate's pick didn't go well either. Actually, we'll get to Kevin Harvick here in a second. We got to talk about him. I forgot because Prostate nearly got his pick right until the goofy happened. But Truex was it was just tough for him. And then the final driver who I put in the bad list, not because he was running terribly or anything like that, but because of the shitty luck that transpired. And yes, I did bring him up. It was Kevin Harvick. Oh, well, move my pop filter out of the way as I'm explaining this to you. Sorry about that. But Kevin Harvick was also a front runner in the race, and he had really good speed as well. Harvick was in the top 5 majority of the time. He and Tyler Reddick were really battling it out, going at it for, the win. So, God, I lost my train of thought. So them, Harvick and Reddick were just battling out in the late stages of the race, not going for the win. I'm sorry, but Harvick. So it was coming down the green flag pit stops, and Harvick actually pitted ahead of Reddick, and they were both in the same corner. Now, mind you, Reddick did not have what I would call a big lead. It was a decent amount, but Harvick was just clearly the better car, and he was closing in. That was until as soon as Harvick was heading down pit road, Reddick accidentally or purposefully, I don't know, whatever you want to call it, locked the brakes up out of 4, kind of slowed down because he actually wanted to pit along with Harvick, but it was too little too late considering that he was so high up the turn that there was no possible way that he was going to get in as cleanly and smoothly as you would normally get on the pit road at Darlington, because Darlington pit road, from what many drivers have said in the past, is not the hardest pit road to get into, but it's not the easiest either. And I mean, I remember a few years ago, back in 2017, Denny Hamlin, who won the Southern 500 that year, missed his pit stall pretty good because he just didn't time it perfectly. So, but this time for Reddick, this was an absolutely not a good move on Reddick's part because he checked up and he accidentally brain checked the 51 of Ryan Newman in the Rick Ware Racing Ford Mustang, spitting them out, ended up causing the caution, which ended up messing up Harvick because Harvick was already on pit road, and by NASCAR rule, you cannot go on the pit road during under caution when pit road is not open. And it was timed so horribly because Harvick was practically doing everything right as a veteran of the sport should have been doing. But, Lady Luck just deals a bad hand, as Ken Squire would say it. So, unfortunate for Kevin Harvick because this is twice now that Harvick has been screwed out of wins. Because if we go back earlier in the spring at Phoenix, he was leading. I believe the last 15 to 20 laps of the race, it looked like that he was going to get the victory lane, possibly his last win of his career, but then a caution came out, and that just messed everything up for Harvick. So, yeah, this is twice now that Harvick has been screwed out of a win, and quite frankly, it's almost disgusting at this point, considering that I want to see Kevin Harvick get in the victory lane before, he eventually goes off into retirement. But, it sucks for the 14. Meanwhile, let's talk about some of the good drivers that had really good playoff runs. This guy didn't finish inside the top 10, but I think he's worth noting of, and that is Kyle Busch. Kyle Busch, during practice of Darlington, he actually hit the wall coming out of turn 2 and actually bent the toe link of the A car. Now, lucky for them, they didn't have to go to a backup car, but unluckily enough, I don't know if that's a phrase, but I'm going with it anyways, due to them changing the toe link before before he went to go out to qualify, he actually had to start at the rear of the field. So no matter what was going to happen, whether he was going to go to a backup car or stay with the same car, qualify or not, he was going to go to the rear regardless. But Kyle Busch never gave up that night. He didn't finish inside the top 10. He came home with the 11th place run, and it looked like that he might have gotten the top 10. And but before all that, he actually became the biggest position mover when it came to, during long green flag runs. I think there was a stat that said that he gained like 25 positions in in majority of the green flag runs. And he got up to as high as about like 9th or 10th inside the top 10, and probably would have walked away with that. So he could at least try to gain the consistency back that he has been lacking for the last several weeks now. But turn 2 at Darlington, not great. Now, while the toe link did bend, it wasn't as severe as Christopher Bell's toe link bent. So just bad luck, for him, and the turn 2 wall Darlington just, has no mercy. That's where a lot of drivers get their Darlington stripes from, and in this next-gen era where toe links are built like popsicle sticks, it'll DNF your day. So, but, yeah, the reason why I put Kyle Busch in the good section is because of the fact that, he moved up. He didn't stay in last for long, so at least he gave a lot of effort. So, yeah, good for Kyle. The final driver I'm going to talk about before I move on to my next topic is Tyler Reddick. Now, Tyler Reddick has been, quite frankly, one of the most odd drivers when it comes to the multiple drivers in the playoff field, simply because of the fact that I mentioned previously numerous times that Reddick and that 45 team at 2311 Racing does have speed. They have that race-winning speed where both cars actually compete up inside the top 5 and top 10. It was a good night for 23. It was a good night for 2311. They actually, both their cars finished inside the top 10. Reddick coming up runner-up to Kyle Larson, and Bubba Wallace coming home with a 7th place finish after spinning earlier in the race. So he came back and got a top 10. So I guess I could put Bubba in the good section as well. But Tyler Reddick was, if Denny Hamlin wasn't going to win the race, or Kyle Larson was going to win the race, if Kyle Larson didn't have the speed and momentum that he had during that race, it was going to be a Tyler Reddick win. Reddick, this was the type of speed that I've been looking for Reddick to have all season, which he's had, but the thing is that 2311 is constantly known for making mistakes on pit road, and just there's a lot of inconsistencies. While there's some good moments with that team, there's a lot of inconsistencies, but I think what we saw out of Reddick this past Sunday, I think if he were to carry out that speed from week to week, and we're actually coming up on a track where not only he's good at, but 2311 is, that's starting to become 2311's home when it comes to wins. If he carries out that speed through Kansas, Bristol, and even through the round of 12, I could definitely see Tyler Reddick going farther in the playoffs than I originally predicted that he is going to. Because reminder, if you guys saw the video that I posted of my playoff predictions a couple days prior to the Southern 500, I did not have Reddick making it past the round of 12. I did have him making it to the round of 12, but beyond that, I just did not see it. But if he were to keep up that speed and consistency, hell, even the round of 12 is going to some tracks that he is not too bad at. He won at Texas last year, Talladega, Roval. Finished runner-up there in 2021. So this could be some. There could be some mojo in the tank for Tyler Reddick. Hopefully that he can be able to propel his way forward into the playoffs and not be a second-round exit, because I want to see Tyler Reddick absolutely shock everyone. But yeah, if he could just keep up that speed and consistency that he had at Darlington, then, who knows? He could surprise all of us and, do what no one thought he could, which he has the capability, but, 23-11 inconsistencies. All right, now that'll do it for what was the weekend recap slash who did well and who did shit moment of the podcast, which took up over almost 26 minutes of the show. But yeah, so we will get into our next topic, ladies and gentlemen, and this comes a day later after the Southern 500 win. And but for Denny Hamlin fans out there who were sad at the Southern 500, well, guess what? You had some happy news to celebrate about, because the wait, the anticipation, and the struggles are finally over. Denny Hamlin announces that he has signed a multi-year deal contract extension with Joe Gibbs Racing. Yes, the contract saga is over. And for all you people out there who predicted that Denny Hamlin was not going to return to JGR and it was going to be all Joe Gibbs Racing's fault, well, guess what? They let it happen last year. Well, not necessarily, but you get what I'm saying. Oh my goodness. Yeah, Denny Hamlin has signed a multi-year contract extension with Joe Gibbs Racing. It's about time that this happened. We were all waiting for the, inevitable, but there were some stalling parts. Denny Hamlin has explained, to the media during, race weekends that, okay, we're getting later in the season, later than I anticipated it, but I guess in this case, it's better late than never. So he has signed a multi-year deal with Joe Gibbs Racing. I don't know if FedEx was in the deal per se. I don't know how many years it is. It could be 2, it could be 3, who knows. But regardless, Denny Hamlin will still be in the 11 car next year. And this also confirms that 2311 Racing will stay with TRD. And that's actually the main point as to why the contract extension with Joe Gibbs Racing was actually taking so long, because they actually had the contract ready to go. The thing about it is that 2311 and Toyota's deal was not done yet, so they had to negotiate those things out first before the deal could finally be published out to the world. So I'm guessing those deals got done, so it led to that announcement. And Joe Gibbs Racing owner Joe Gibbs obviously was on Denny Hamlin's podcast this week, Actions Detrimental, to announce the contract. So yeah, Denny Hamlin fans, you can take a big sigh of relief to know that he will not be going anywhere. And all those Ford rumors out there, I don't know how serious those were, to be honest. I want to say that Denny Hamlin used that as leverage, I guess, or something like that. I don't know, but yeah, as far as I'm concerned, and Steve Allletter was correct, nothing is changing next year with that team. So, yeah, and that officially means that Toyota will officially have 8 Cup cars on the track. There's 4 cars over at Joe Gibbs Racing, 2311 Racing, and the new team to the group, Legacy Motor Club. So, yeah, Toyota is not losing anybody next year. So that is obviously great to see. So yeah, Denny Hamlin, hopefully this is the last contract, extension that he has to sign, because Denny Hamlin, during his first ever signing with Joe Gibbs Racing, because he's been with the team for over 20 years, he has said that, he hopes that the last announcement would be a retirement. So it's a good possibility that this, I'm not going to speculate, how many years he has. We can all do that, but, who knows? But as of right now, Hamlin is not going anywhere. So congratulations to Denny Hamlin on finally getting that done. But actually, we have more silly season rumors. When one spot is filled in the Cup Series, there are still others that are not filled but are questionable. And one of the questionable teams is actually Wood Brothers Racing, also known as the new Penske satellite team. And that concerns the 21 car of Harrison Burton. Now, earlier this week, it's been reported that rumors as of late that Harrison Burton could either possibly stay with the Wood Brothers next year or potentially leave and go do something else. I was not one of the believers saying that Harrison Burton was going to leave the Wood Brothers, so to speak. I honestly thought that he was always going to stay, but according to Jordan Bianchi a couple days ago, it was reported by him that Harrison Burton is reported to stay with the Wood Brothers next year. So as far as that's concerned, Harrison Burton is not going anywhere as well. Now, why do I bring up Harrison Burton? And, if Jordan Bianchi says, okay, well, if he's not going anywhere, then why were there rumors of it? Well, during the media week at Darlington, which Harrison Burton was asked, about his future with the team, and, he went on about how he has a great support group around him, and, how he loves basically the environment around the team, how he loves the people working with him, which is very good to see out of a young driver. Harrison is only 22 years old. He is still a very young race car driver, but a lot of people look at Harrison Burton, obviously, and so far in his almost 2 full-time seasons in the Cup Series, because he was a rookie last year, it has not been that amazing of an experience for the son of NASCAR legend Jeff Burton. Obviously that team, with Matt DiBenedetto, when he was still driving for the team, they were actually a little bit more consistent. They were, it seemed like that they were up front just a tiny bit more, but for Harrison Burton, that's just not been the case. I'm not trying to, put Harrison Burton down or anything, but if you were to tell me that he was a little bit rushed for the Cup Series, I can't say that you're wrong. It was only just a few years ago where Harrison Burton was in the Truck Series. He didn't win anything. Then he goes to Joe Gibbs Racing in 2020 for 2 full-time seasons in the Xfinity Series. He wins 4 races his rookie year, makes the playoffs, and he had a really solid season. 2021, it wasn't the same. He went winless that year. While still putting up some pretty decent numbers, he was unable to get the 20 car in victory lane. Then later that season, right around the mid-summer point of that season, it was confirmed by numerous reports that, Matt DiBenedetto wasn't going to return to the 21 for Wood Brothers Racing next year. So, and then all of a sudden, he gets announced up to the Cup Series for the Wood Brothers Racing, and I'm just like, wait, what? Don't you want to give him, at least another year in Xfinity before you can even consider that to be an option? I do believe that Harrison does have some talent to him. And, I'm not saying that he doesn't feel comfortable in the situation that he's in and the team that he's in. Like he said, that he is, like I said, he's mentioned that he likes the environment of the team. He likes the people that he works with, which, he should as a very young race car driver, because it's always going to set you up for success depending on, if it's being operated properly. But, Harrison, to me, I think could really improve in his career. And, Harrison, obviously, to many people, including myself, has always been looked as that long-term project. Yes, he was a little bit rushed up, but, Wood Brothers is, for however long they want it, they want to stay committed to that driver and see how far, it goes before they throw their hands up and say, all right, let's move on. We're getting tired of this. And I think Harrison Burton is that guy. I think Harrison Burton will probably one day reach success, but as of right now, I'm not going to call him a bust. I don't think that's fair. Because while, I'm not saying he's with the worst team in the garage, I'm also not saying that he is gotten a decent chance in Cup either, because quite frankly, he really hasn't. Penske builds the Wood Brothers cars now, and obviously, that team is not the main priority. It's the 2, the 12, and the 22, the Penske trio, and then there's just Harrison Burton, who's just running there. So, if Harrison Burton does decide to return to, the Wood Brothers next year, I wouldn't be mad at that necessarily, because let's be real, if he didn't return, there's two problems. One, besides Zane Smith, who, in my opinion, is linked to SHR, who would the Wood brothers even sign to begin with? Like, there's no other big names out there. I mean, yeah, you could say, oh, what about Riley Herbst? But then again, Riley Herbst, to me, has not shown, like, any forms of improvement. Like, he's been consistent. He's been getting consistently better. But then again, he's not won a race. So, how can we put trust in that guy? So, yeah, I don't see. I didn't see Riley Herbst going there. Zane Smith would have been a good option, but then again, I think he's more considered to be with SHR than he is the Wood brothers. But good to know that Harrison Burton is going to stay in that 21 car, at least according to Jordan Bianchi, who has gotten reports over the years, right, until that one recent blunder a few months ago. I forget what it was. But yeah. Now moving on to another silly season rumor, and that is with colleague Racing. Now, during the Darlington weekend, AJ Allmendinger was asked about his future with colleague Racing, and he says that he will be with the team next year, but as far as whether it's going to be Cup and Xfinity, he does not know. So I could speculate all episode of, what AJ could possibly do. I'm not doubting the fact that he hasn't had considerations of probably wanting to go back to Xfinity, considering that, AJ Allmendinger in Xfinity and AJ Allmendinger in Cup are two completely different drivers. We've seen it on full display. Even when he's not running full time in that series, part time. He has 2 wins in the series part time this year. So, but he will be with colleague Racing next year because he's been a big asset to that team and to that organization. But regarding if we'll see a Cup Series or Xfinity Series patch on his fire suit, we do not know. But there was another interesting thing that AJ Allmendinger says, and he said that he was asked about who could be a potential candidate to drive the 31 car for colleague Racing next year, and he asked, I already know who it is. Now, obviously, AJ is not going to spill out the secret right away and spoil anything. Colleague Racing will announce their announcement when the time comes. So it doesn't sound like that's going to be a rotational car like some people speculated, which obviously couldn't be possible considering that's a charted team. But the 31 car for colleague Racing has their driver for next year, but as to who it is, we do not know as of yet. A few months ago, I predicted Austin Hill to be the driver for that ride, considering that it was high on Bob Hocker's list of potential candidates, but obviously he signed a multi-year extension with RCR to be in the Xfinity Series, so that's not happening. Zane Smith, there was the thing that Ford and Frontrunner Motorsports said that he is glad to explore other options. I don't know if that's other options with Ford teams or other options with other teams and other manufacturers. Never say never. We don't know what that means necessarily, but he could be a candidate, but I highly doubt it. Carson Hocevarm, a Chevy driver, making Cup starts. He could be a guy. Shane Van Gisbergen, I don't necessarily see because he signed a wide range variety deal with Trackhouse Racing. So if I'm expecting him to be in any Cup ride next year, it's to be the 91 part time. So that's out the window. So I'm narrowing it down to 2 drivers, that being Carson Hocevar and oh god, I don't even know who else, man, who could be a potential candidate. So Carson Hocevar and Zane Smith, I could definitely see. I know a lot of people are going to say, well, Zane Smith's a Ford driver, he's not going to leave. Listen, I'm just throwing out potential options out there. Colleague definitely has had some good options here and there, but one of those drivers that I potentially mentioned or may have not mentioned has that ride. And there has been a name as of recently that has been floating around as of late. You guys could decide who that guy is, but But as of right now, I'm not going to say who that driver's name is. You're going to have to guess for yourself. So, yeah, those are the silly season rumors that I have as of this week. So, moving on to our next topic, ladies and gentlemen, and that is the 2024 schedule. Is speculated to be released this month for the NASCAR Cup Series, and I'm sure the other series schedules are going to come out after that as well. But we've been speculating for the past few months on some of the big questions. What's going to replace Auto Club for the West Coast swing? Is it Sonoma? Could they potentially have a Los Angeles Memorial Coliseum points race? I hope to God that does not happen. Just keep it the Clash because that's what makes it special. There's reports of, potentially a new All-Star race location. There's reports of, there's rumors of Rockingham coming back. Is North Wilkesboro potentially going to get a points-paying race date? Could SMI replace that? Could SMI use that to replace a sprained Bristol race, whether it's on asphalt or concrete? Asphalt or concrete. Concrete or dirt, I should say, excuse me. And there's also the big rumor, which is likely confirmed as of now, and that is the Brickyard 400 returning. The only two confirmed dates in the whole entire schedule before the schedule is even released is the Daytona 500 and Championship Weekend. So those were the only two confirmed dates. But actually, as of yesterday, it looks to be that the Chicago Street Course will return next year due to the website saying get your 2024 tickets now. So yeah, it looks like the Street Course will be back next year, and rightfully so. I consider that race to be a massive success. So, but going to some schedule rumors, let's go one by one. The first one I mentioned was the what will replace Auto Club rumor. Me honestly, and I think every race fan out there can agree with me on this. I see Sonoma taking that place. For the West Coast swing. I mean, it only makes sense. It's the only other West Coast track out there that's not named Las Vegas Motor Speedway or Phoenix Raceway, so it logically makes sense. I would love to see a green Sonoma race because, we've seen pictures of Sonoma in the spring. Yeah, it's the rainy season, but, we run rain tires now, so it's all good on road courses. So I think that's the most... I think that's what's most likely going to happen. So if I had to, I'm not a betting man per se, but if I had to bet $100 on what I would think would take the place as the, second or third race of the West Coast swing, I would have to put my money on, Sonoma, along with Las Vegas and Phoenix, doing that as well. So yeah, I don't see a LA Coliseum points race being held because that's not possible because it's already hard enough for 23 cars, which was the first Clash. Then this year they added like 4 more cars to the lineup, which now adds up to 27. It's already hard enough for 27 cars in that tight little oval to race around at a clean level, if you want me to be honest, without like the back half of the back part of the field already getting lapped on lap 1. So yeah, I just don't see it. So then there's the All-Star race rumors of it potentially having a new location. Now, me personally, I don't mind the idea of. I've always liked this idea of like the All-Star race being a rotational track when it comes. Just give it some variety. I really miss the Charlotte All-Star races. And with this next gen car and how it races at Charlotte, I think it would be a really good race. While North Wilkesboro, while it was a really cool thing to see, the race in itself was just kind of a massive disappointment, but it was just so much more than that. Rockingham has been a name coming up as of recently. I would love to see the Rock back. It needs some minor touches here and there, but other than that, with the repave, add some safer barrier, make it look all nice, and you're ready to go for All-Star Race weekend. So I'm not going to really sit here and guess what I think could be the All-Star race location next year. I mean, if it returns to North Wilkesboro, I don't have a problem with that. If it goes to somewhere else, I don't have a problem with that. So, yeah. Then we go to the North Wilkesboro getting a points race rumor. So the Bristol Dirt Race, year 3, it's been really, really successful. It was a really successful race. It looked like an actual dirt race, but now there's rumors saying that we might not even have a spring Bristol race at all. A lot of people are saying keep the dirt, go back to the concrete, or do something else. And doing that something else, I would likely assume that it would be North Wilkesboro getting a points paying race going because it's an SMI track now. So I would like to see another points paying race at North Wilkesboro, even though I wasn't alive to see one, but seeing that track back now, and who knows, they could get a repave done. I highly doubt it though, but if you make some minor touches to the next gen car and make the short track package way better, then it could be a really good race on the schedule. Again, I'm not too picky on this one either. The Brickyard 400 rumor, that's basically not even a rumor anymore. It's basically what's going to happen next year. So, for that, I'm just going to say cool. But I do want to say this, and I meant to talk about this during the Indy Road Course podcast, that episode. I believe it was episode 24, 25. For people who are advocating for the Brickyard 400 to come back, and they've run tire tests so far at that track, several weeks ago. When that race comes back in 2024, if that race is not up to the standards or the lofty expectations that every single NASCAR fan out there who advocated for this race to come back is not there, if those high expectations are, weren't there to begin with, or, aren't going to be there at all once the green flag hits and the checker flag waves, I do not want to hear a single fan complain. You wanted this back on the schedule, you got it. Now, I really hope that this race does not fail. I would like to see a very successful Brickyard 400 race. But, to say that this race might be a success when it comes to racing product and fan attendance, that's definitely a take, because that's certainly a big take, to say the least, because, even before NASCAR went to did the Indy Road Course, which I think, in year 3 saw its most successful race ever and wasn't a wacky and chaotic race, which I don't mind depending on what mood I'm in, but, we finally got it perfect, but then all of a sudden, let's go back to the Brickyard 400, and then all of a sudden, people are going to start getting upset when the racing product isn't good. Then that's their fault, because you advocated for it to come back, and guess what? You got it. So, that is all on you. Now moving on to our next topic of the show, ladies and gentlemen, and that is some big silly season news that was just announced yesterday, and it was sort of a connected one with the Denny Hamlin contract extension, because if Denny Hamlin would have not returned to Joe Gibbs Racing, then this guy probably would have taken the seat. So, John Hunter Nemechek has announced that he will return to the Cup Series next year to drive the number 42 car for Legacy Motor Club. This wasn't very shocking at all. This has been rumored for the past several weeks now. Pretty much ever since, Legacy Motor Club, announced the switch to Toyota, because, a lot of people automatically assumed, Noah Gragson, he's going to be back at the Toyota stable next year. Even before the whole suspension thing, I didn't think that was going to happen, because, Gregson's a contracted Chevy driver, and, his relationship with Toyota has not been the best, so I didn't expect him to return for Toyota. or Legacy Motor Club. So when, Noah Gragson got bounced out and that whole, ordeal went down, we automatically picked John Hunter Nemechek to be the next guy up when it comes to an open seat for any Toyota team in the Cup Series. I mean, John Hunter Nemechek, you want to talk about a career rebuild, because this one, first of all, for any new NASCAR fan out there who has joined the past 2 years, and I've seen John Hunter Nemechek in the lower ranks, with Kyle Busch Motorsports and Joe Gibbs Racing. I want to tell you guys something, that this is not the first time that John Hunter Nemechek is going to the Cup Series, because back in 2020, the whole season that was, with no practice or no qualifying, he was a rookie that season with Front Row Motorsports in the 38 car, and that's a season that John Hunter Nemechek himself will probably like to forget, as he only mustered up 1 top 5 and 3 top 10s. So it was not a very fruitful experience for John Hunter Nemechek. So he decided to himself, you know what, I'm better than this. I want to go prove that I am a contender in this, in this sport. So I'm going to go back down in the Truck Series and I'm going to rebuild myself. So he signs with Kyle Busch Motorsports in 2021. He wins 5 races that year, makes the championship 4. He follows up that season with another 2 wins, made the playoffs. And then, he gets called up to Joe Gibbs Racing this year to drive the 20 car in the Xfinity Series. And so far, John Hunter Nemechek has been looking like the championship favorite. 5 wins already so far this year. He is looking to be the title favorite, as I just mentioned. So, if anyone was going to get the next seat in the Cup Series for any Toyota team, whether it was Joe Gibbs, whether it was 2311, whether it was Legacy Motor Club, John Hunter Nemechek was always going to be the number 1 man, because Jimmy Johnson even came on Race Hub last night and even said that it was kind of tricky to pick John Hunter Nemechek because, during the whole Truex retirement rumors, it was speculated that he might go to the 19 instead of the 42. So, obviously Truex is staying for at least another year. So, so John Hunter Nemechek will drive the 42 car. So not only is this good for John Hunter Nemechek, but this is also good for Legacy Motor Club, because, 2024 is going to be the big revamp year for them, because they're making the move to Toyota. This year has practically been a wash. They're going to get more support from their manufacturer. Eric Jones is returning, Eric Jones who has actually gotten better as of recently this season. His average finish to start out the year was 22nd, but then as of late, it got up to 16.3, which is nearly 4 positions better. So there has been some improvement in Legacy Motor Club camp regarding the 43 team. The 42 team, it's going to be filled with, drivers just making Cup starts. I think Carson Hocevar might fill out the remainder of the season. Majority of the remainder of the season for them. But, they're going to have a full-time driver again next year, and John Hunter Nemechek is going to be that guy. And I think he's a really good fit for Legacy Motor Club because, he's going to get in there in that ride expecting to do really, really well. I'm not saying that he's going to go out and win races immediately and, contend for it, but, I do expect him to run, kind of like how Ty Gibbs, like Eric Eastet mentioned it on his channel, huge shout out to him. He made a really good point. He could probably, run as good as like Ty Gibbs is doing this year, casually peeking up inside the top 10, even top 5 here and there. So, congratulations to John Hunter Nemechek. That's another silly season move down. So, I expect big things from him in Legacy Motor Club next year. No word on, what sponsors are going to come with him. I would assume it'd be Mobil 1 because, he brought that Mobil 1 sponsorship with him to the Xfinity Series along with his other fire equipment, sponsors as well, or, whatever else he has. But, once again, congratulations to John Hunter Nemechek on getting back to the Cup Series next year, and good luck to him as he chases an Xfinity Series title for Joe Gibbs Racing. Whew, I had to kind of do some mouth exercises right there because I've been talking so much. Next up, we have some Xfinity Series news regarding colleague racing. This is the second time in this episode that I'm going to be talking about colleague racing. And it's regarding their Xfinity Series teams before the Xfinity Series playoffs begins, because this upcoming weekend, which is the Kansas race for them, this will be the last race of their regular season before their playoffs start at Bristol the following week. Colleague Racing released a report saying that Daniel Hemrick will be driving the number 10 car for the remainder of the 2023 season, which kind of took me by surprise because I wasn't really sure what Colleague Racing was doing right there. So what basically Colleague Racing is doing right there is going for the Xfinity Series Owners Championship. Now, they have a driver as of right now that is going to try to go for the main Xfinity Series Championship, but I don't think he'll win it. That being the 16 of Chandler Smith, who already has a win this year. Now, Daniel Hemrick, he does not have a win. He, quite frankly, is nowhere near close to any sort of playoff contention compared to his young and rising star of a teammate. But what they're going to do with the 10 car is that they are trying to get into the Owners Championship playoffs to see if they could, get an Owners Championship there. And for the 11 car, which was his car that he was driving full-time, will now become the new part-time car for Colleague Racing. As Derek Kraus, I would expect, he's already making his Kansas start this upcoming weekend. God, I can't speak. Derek Kraus will be in the 11 this weekend for Kansas, so I would expect him and some other drivers possibly to, make some starts the remainder of the year. So it's kind of like what 23 Hour Racing did with their cars last year. They moved Bubba Wallace over to the 45 because the 45 car, before Kurt Busch got injured, was a playoff car, and since Kurt wasn't eligible and removed his playoff waivers to give it to somebody else, they moved Bubba over the 45 car and Ty Gibbs over to the 23, so Bubba could go for an Owners Championship. So that's basically how it works. It hardly happens often. This is starting to become more common, even though it's been with two teams in two different divisions in NASCAR. So, so that's the reason why they're doing that with Daniel Hemrick in the 10 car. I don't know if it's going to boost his performance necessarily because it's not been a really good season for Daniel Hemrick in that 11 car. So I don't know if I'm not going to expect any sort of improvement out of there. But, good luck with Colleague Racing for the rest of the year, and even in the playoffs with Chandler Smith. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we are down to the final parts of the show. I know, it seems like I've been talking a lot this whole entire episode, but that's how podcasts typically work. And this is time. Okay, I need to really evaluate how I talk. It is time for weekend picks. Pretty self-explanatory, ladies and gentlemen. We look at the race weekend picks and, we look at the race weekend races. Goodness gracious. I don't know. It's been a long day for me, guys. I'm sorry, but I'm trying to do this the best I can. The race weekend ahead, and we pick the drivers to see who wins. So we're going to pick to see who wins this weekend's races this weekend. It is a Truck Series playoff race this weekend, which is tomorrow night for the NASCAR Craftsman Truck Series at Kansas Speedway. This is their only time that they're making their trip to the mile-and-a-half track that is outside of Kansas City. As for my pick for this weekend, this driver came close last year to winning that, but he actually ran out of fuel on the final lap. And, momentum is starting to swing in his favor as of late. And we talked about him earlier in the show, giving him props of his Cup Series start at Darlington. I'm going to go with Carson Hocevar to win the Truck Series race at Kansas this weekend. Now moving on to the Xfinity Series race this weekend. The final race of the Xfinity Series before their playoff start. It's a tie battle between two drivers, that being Parker Kligerman and Riley Herbst as they continue to battle for the the final playoff spot, as Riley Herbst is only in by 1 point, I believe. So it's a battle between those two drivers. So it's only, we can only imagine who's going to get in. Me personally, I want to see Kligerman get in, but I think Herbst is the more realistic option. Now, as for the driver who I think will win this weekend's Xfinity Series race, hell, I talked about him earlier too. Why not go John Hunter Nemechek? John Hunter Nemechek is currently on cloud 9 right now, running well in Xfinity, is going to get a Cup promotion for next year, so why not give him the momentum to win this weekend's Xfinity Series race? So yeah, John Hunter Nemechek is my Xfinity Series pick. Now we get into the Cup Series race. And this is a very tricky race because during the spring race, we saw 3 teams go at it. Primarily, we saw Joe Gibbs Racing, who ended up winning. We saw Hendrick Motorsports, which came close on the final lap. Excuse me. And then we have 2311 Racing, who has always ran pretty consistent here as of late. Now, as for who I think will win this weekend's race, I would pick Tyler Reddick to win. Considering the speed he had at Darlington, and I think that he could have enough speed to win at Kansas this weekend because the 45 car has had a knack for winning there. But I'm going to go for another Toyota driver that's not Tyler Reddick. And no, it's not his teammate Bubba Wallace either. Actually, none of 2311 Racing. I'm going to go with Denny Hamlin. A lot of people are going to groan at that pick, but it's really funny, to me because, we gave Denny Hamlin a lot of crap for, the whole Darlington pit road thing, but I honestly think that, he's really fast as of right now. He's looking for that first ever championship, and, it starts in this round. It starts now. But, I think he's going to have a really similar race to Kansas, but minus the pit road goofiness that happened in Darlington, I think if they minimize mistakes on pit road and they have that same consistent speed and dominating speed that they had this past weekend at Darlington, I will 100% put my money on Denny Hamlin to win. So, yeah, I'm going to pick Denny Hamlin to win at Kansas this upcoming weekend. With all that being said, ladies and gentlemen, that'll do it for episode 29 of the Checkers or Wreckers podcast this week. Let me know what you guys think of all the news that happened this week. We're coming down to the end of the first season of the show. I know it's very, very sad, but it's been a really, really successful first season of the show. So, but as always, ladies and gentlemen, thank you guys so much for tuning in to the Checkers or Wreckers podcast. And as always, I am your host, Carl Leonard, and I will see you guys next week as we preview the round of 16 elimination race at Bristol. With all that being said, have a good night, everyone.